Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folani. Hope you had a great weekend. Now, in the weekend, yesterday, in fact, Lagos celebrated Fawehinmism. Of course, we're talking about the late Gani Fawehinmi, 1938 to 2018, when it was celebrated. The government, Lagos State government, celebrated him. Unveiled another statue of the eminent legal luminary known as the people's lawyer. In fact, he was senior advocate of the masses, as you recall, for such a long time, and then ultimately he became became an SAN, senior advocate of Nigeria. But curiously, the chief in his lifetime used to write SAN. He never jettisoned what the people lovingly, gave him. The man had his issues, or shall I say, the legal body that confers such honors, if you ask me, on the outside here looking in, must have had their issues with the man, because as far as we were concerned, he ought to have been an SAN ages ago, but they finally brought it. And so Lagos celebrated him, and the whole country, indeed, if you want, the world joined in, because when you see a person, I think if you were to mention Gani Fawehinmi, and if you were to ask anybody in Nigeria who knows about him, that, so what does Gani Fawehinmi mean to you? He's probably not going to go too far before human rights comes out, of his mouth, because he was a die-hard proponent of human rights. As you know, you don't need me to tell you, he suffered for his principled stance, and it's fitting that he was celebrated. He spent a lot of it, most of his life although he's of Ondo State, he spent most of his life in Lagos, personal and professional. And there are lawyers that came out of his chamber and who are proud to have been associated with him. In fact, I have a couple of them. Wale Ogunade, he's president of Voters Awareness Initiative. Malaki Ogumadu, national president of CDHR, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Thank you very, very much for coming on, gentlemen. I hope I have not overstated it, that this man is your hero as well. Malaki, take a first shot.
On this very seat, on that very day,
yeah, I remember.
Chief Gani Fawehinmi passed on.
Yeah.
I had been summoned here to discuss a different issue.
That's right.
And behold, you were at that exact position.
I do remember.
When the news broke out.
When the news broke.
That chief had passed on.
And though
we did not have any difficulty
in switching
the subject and then dealing with it as proficiently.
Exactly.
Because
you didn't need to prepare for that.
No,
it's in the system.
Chief was a history himself.
Yes.
Chief was, if you like, a repository of the tradition and principles and ideals that characterize the community that we found ourselves. So it came effortlessly. We were able to discharge, and I continually will find pleasure in discussing Chief, not just as in the sense that people know him, but one who was also a serious inspiration to so many people.
Indeed.
Some of us.
Were you in his chambers?
No, but I had a long working relationship with him.
Okay.
And I can just do well to just, run it through.
I can imagine.
First is that himself, Mr. Femi Falana, Olisa Bakoba, were the three prominent human rights, pro-democracy lawyers that inspired some of us to study law. And I am not ashamed to say this because even Falana himself, another close confidant of mine, had told me how the same chief inspired him. Recall that Falana was studying English in Obafemi Awolowo University, then University of Ife, and had gone some years in the studies before he changed. He told me, and he's still alive.
Indeed.
That he inspired him. Now, from there, we moved into the national conscience as a movement.
Indeed.
Then.
I'm going to come back to that, to the National Consciousness Party. The chief was a man of substantial means, perhaps it goes with the territory, But why I brought that up at all is the fact that a large part of this was devoted to, I would say, his first love, which is law, the law. law reports, I believe. There's the Nigerian Law Report House. So he was passionately devoted to the law because this was the, shall we say, the vehicle through which he sought to make the ground level for every Nigerian citizens. And as Malaki just, touched upon there, the National Conscience Party, he founded that. And the fact that conscience is in the name of that party, when you look at the name conscience, it does give you an insight into the chief. And by the way, let me also, he was saying how proud he is of the chief, and so I imagine you're going to say, but also me being unlearned, nevertheless, I was quite close to the chief, and he did me this special privilege and honor. From time to time, he was an author, as you know, a prolific author. He would actually initial something.
He had his anchor in the media.
Yes, he would initial, personally autograph a new publication and send it to me. And of course, I'd get back to him and be thankful and all of that. But I was talking about the man and the law.
How I wish somebody would begin to celebrate our icons while alive. And to me, Chief Gani Fawehinmi is not dead. You see, people who do good do not die. I mean, yesterday we celebrate him. People like us, there is no day we will not interface with Chief Gani Fawehinmi because of our work, either as an activist or for someone like me as a lawyer. Because just as we mentioned some few seconds ago, the law reports are what guides us. And his introduction or his bringing up that Nigerian Weekly Law Report really altered and changed the face of legal activism again in Nigeria. Such a person can never die. And where am I going? I really feel pained. Yesterday, too, some people were erroneously using worse for him at his posthumous, when he was being unveiled, and at the birthday, too. And I really felt bad. Unfortunately, I wanted to take the microphone, but again, I knew that I would cause some kata-kata there. So I really relaxed. And I thank God that I have the opportunity now to let the world know that.
As the past tense of is.
He's not dead.
Okay,
he's still alive. Chief Gani Fawehinmi is still alive.
His ideals will forever
be.
live.
So now coming back here, I don't know how to quantify the man. I've worked with him too as an activist. We've been in the trenches. He's our mentor. He's our leader. He's our light, the leading light. And of course, he stood for justice, ensuring that the poor does not suffer. And for such a person,
he suffered
for the poor
for this very noble objective.
Let me blow your mind. He has no poor background whatsoever. But he took the problem of the poor as his own.
Yes.
And for such a person, a unique person, an enigma. And of course, his chambers was open to everybody. If you are coming, you say you want to work with him, he will never ask whose father or who is your mother, where are you from, or anybody from anywhere come to his chambers. And of course, his chamber has the Hausas, the Igbos, the Yorubas, and all sorts of people come to his chamber to learn. And of course, apart from him, there's so many people, I don't want to mention their names here, but even if there is one person, Tony Amechina, there are so many, even Ozakome, what's it again, Oyatibo, there are so many.
All of these lawyers,
and of course,
that are now known.
The training he has given most of us. I didn't work with him as a lawyer in his chamber, but of course, he influenced my career.
Of course.
And of course, today, I'm proud that indeed I'm associated with him.
Talking about his background, as you know, he studied law in the UK, and you said something about him not having any kind of a poor background. But he did encounter problems because his beloved father passed on while he was in the UK. His beloved father was a successful timber merchant in Ondo State. But it is reported that the chief then had to do whatever it takes, go through some menial jobs to just make sure everything was okay. That was
out of his own conviction that, yes, I want to suffer so that, of course, after wearing the shoe. The estate of the father was there to take care of
So he knows what it means to be,
to suffer, to lack.
Yes. And that is, it's understanding. He also was highly principled.
Seriously.
We'll probably get into some of it. I remember a story. It's something of an anecdote. I think at one time, one year, and I can't remember the year. I don't even care to remember the year. There had been the Ilea Ram thing, and the story had gone that
the government
a government had sent Rasala rams to the chief, And he had sent it back. He had sent it right back. So what is this all about? Whose funds are these? What is this kind of a thing? I mean, of course he could do, if he wanted 100 rams, he could buy 100 rams. So that was how he was. You know, don't be given privileges. There are people that need attention, that should be faced with attention, and here we are doing this kind of thing.
Grant me the indulgence to dwell on that. You know, and I hope, because a discourse on Chief Gani Fawehinmi could be very emotive and emotional. But I think we will, time has mediated through the passage and all that, we could collect ourselves a bit and deal with the issues. First, please make no mistake about it. I am not perhaps the most qualified to discuss Chief.
In fact, we are not.
There are quite a number of people.
Of course. And a lot of those were at the events.
By reason of age, by reason of association, and by reason of timing.
Indeed.
Who were one-on-one. I had the privilege.
Thank you for making that modest, submission.
I mean,
but he touched so many people's lives, and we just grabbed hold of some of them.
In spite of that, a couple of factors also conspired in my own life, you know, that threw me directly with him. I've been driven away from the university.
Not driven
without
Don't be economic with
what more do you want?
Well,
what more do you want?
My friend, lies are better told in English. So driven away, expelled, rusticated, they are all one and the same. Now, that was in the thick of military
junta
madness in this country, where the military was running amok. And people like us, having been properly orientated from our days in the university, did not find it difficult to know where we were headed. And so I found myself in the CDHR, where I superintend today as the national president, as a senior research officer. From then, I became the general secretary. And there was an election of all the civil society pro-democracy movement in the country in 1998 for the formation of the Joint Action Committee, which was, you know, Christian Jackon. Chief Gani Fawehinmi was the president. Professor Toyo Lorode was the vice president. We had this Sheikh Husani, who were all in the team. We had, yes, Senator Sheikh Husani. We have Oba Ahmed, who is now the political advisor to the Kaduna State government. We had Femi Falana, of course. We have Dr. Bayowana. We had Unitiri Abiola, one of Abiola's wives. We had Nike Ransom Kuti, who was Beko's, who is Beko's daughter. You had Femi Aborishade, who was the general secretary.
Indeed.
I was the national general secretary at the age of 23, 24. Now, when that happened, there were, of course, a lot of experiences. It was an experience that consolidated our conviction. And then we started giving concrete expression to those convictions. And one of those experiences, and I think you even alluded to that on issue of principle, that was the one that the general public had.
Yes.
Let me share on a day like this, one very disarming. That's about integrity. You know, Chief had one secret, and I hope I'm speaking about it the way it is, because that is how I intend to domesticate it. Chief knew the kind of battle he was going into and got ready for it. Even the law report that people talk about, he knew it was a revolution. Not a revolution against the country, but a revolution against his own profession. And I understand that he got so ready, so prepared, that what people saw and knew as a publication company was duplicated elsewhere.
Just in case.
Just in case. I used to attend a meeting under the military in underground facility in Chief Gani Fawehinmi's chambers. That was where we were meeting all through.
Indeed.
Now to tell you about the principle is that at the level of Jackon, we had gotten funding.
The Joint Action Committee.
God bless you. He was the chairman from the German embassy, if I'm not mistaken. And Chief was approached and given this amount of money to further prosecute this battle. It was becoming hectic killings were going on, arrests were going on, brutalization was going on. Chief returned the money before reporting it to us as the National Executive Council. What were the principles? One, we need not discuss it. Two, it is this kind of activities that kill the struggle. Thirdly, he turned around and donated twice that amount.
To Jacon.
Exactly. Now, don't forget, it was his facilities we were using. You need to attend a meeting where Chief was. You will see the height of organization. You will see the quorum. You will see. I mean, everything for him was war, was battle.
Indeed. You know,
was in the court, was in a meeting.
I know once you guys get going on Chief Gani Fawehinmi, it's very hard to get a word in edgewise. But this very thing you're talking about, another aspect of the late Chief Gani Fawehinmi being prepared, there's another anecdote that he himself had told us in interviews, that in his house there is a little suitcase packed, ready, so that at a moment's notice, he expected fully to be harried, to be victimized, to be hassled, and at any time that the military would come and say, you're under whatever it is, they used to refer to it, he didn't need 2 minutes. He just picks up his bag, let's go, guys. So he was prepared. He knew that man's inhumanity to man was going to continue. And it's a testimony to the man's caliber that he was prepared that whatever it takes, I'm ready to pay the price. Yes. In fact, it is believed that the man passing on, you can, source you can situate it to all these problems that they used to give him, locking him up anywhere, asbestos, inhaling, and all of that. Well, the man will, as you said, will never ever die in the consciousness of all men of goodwill.
Yes, just to confirm.
But I wonder, sorry, sir. Okay. I wonder, let's not lose sight of Fawehmiism. I want us to, what Fawehmiism means. Okay. Because there was a celebration, I think an organization, Know Your Rights Initiative, was talking about celebrating Fawehmiism. I know that you guys have plenty to talk about that. Let me start with you. I'll go over to Malaki.
Okay. So just to give a second leg to your issue, as we sit now, Gani was the one who expanded the electoral horizon. If you remember, INEC came out some time ago and said that they are not, or even government, that they are not going to register more political parties.
That's right. He
went to court and ensured that indeed the space is opened under the principle of the more the merrier.
Yes.
Why will you encompass people into some boxes and bring strange bedfellow comes together? That's what he's taught, and he said, no, I'm not going to allow that. He went to court. Eventually, not only is the National Conscious Party, or was the National Conscious Party registered, we have 82 political parties now in Nigeria. The work of Chief Gani Fawehinmi. Apart from, is it the issue of local standard? Ordinarily, if you are not a government officer, or you have an issue to do with, you can't sue government. But now we have taken it to the public domain. We call it public interest litigation. So anybody can sue government, ask, and of course that gave birth to the Freedom of Information Act and co. So people, the frontiers of ability to challenge government has come up. Don't forget, Fela too is another person that will never die. But again, today is not Fela's topic. But again, he too, as Fela was using music to harass the system, he was using the law.
And just by the way, the late chief loved Fela's music.
The more because their bases are the same fella. So let me quickly cushion it. Let me quickly cushion it. So issues of he going to prison on a regular basis, he's already made up his mind that he's sold to the struggle. Like some of us are sold to the struggle. Some people will see us and say, look, you people are not afraid of your life.
And
I will say, what do you mean by life? What is life after? What do you live for?
That the chief was a man of substantial means. So, but still going through all of that hassle and being ready to do whenever was necessary.
And for your information, his death was not called because he was reckless about his life, but it's because of the company he was deliberately put amongst hardened criminals and good people who are good smokers. And of course, it was this inhaling of cigarettes cigarette and smoke that indeed eventually led to his death.
Indeed.
Not living a useless lifestyle.
So,
Malaki, Fawehmiism.
Yes, I'm happy you want us to zero in on that. You could discuss Fawehmiism from the prison of what he was. He was a man of conviction, deep conviction, and that saw him through, even if he was standing alone. A good example is what he did with the Nigerian legal profession on 2 different occasions. In the one instance, he was accused of advertising
Yes.
because he has introduced
The weekly law report.
the law report he intended to publish. And then
Accused by his own peers,
yes,
right?
by his own peers,
You
who
see,
were scared of that.
Why do people do this kind of? Why do we do this kind of thing?
Well, revolution, people are usually
They
very,
resist.
very circumspect
Yes.
and scared of change. And when it does come, you will see the response. That happened in that case. And I told you he was ready. Not just in terms of the resources, because that is part of the mistake that is going on now. He did not joke with self-empowerment. Chief could not have donated the amount given by the German embassy if he was a poor man.
Indeed.
He couldn't have returned it
Yes.
if he didn't have the means.
Indeed.
So that was an aspect of him that promoted even his struggle. Did you realize that if Chief had an idea, and we saw it severally, we were discussing revolution, not transition, with the military. Chief did not end at advocating it. Chief came out with a book. We had a book. I still have those things. At the level of Jacon, there's much I could talk about. You know, in 1994, October 1st, 1994, I was one of the coordinators. This Festus Keyamo was in charge of the South-South. Sam Amadi, the same former chairman of
electricity,
RC, Regulatory Council.
Commission.
was in charge
Commission,
of the
sorry.
Southeast. In short, I detained Sam Amadi in my room with Comrade Prince Wilak Bakman for at least 12 hours. There were no phones before we ascertained that he was sent by Chief. Then there were those who were Omotobara, one Omotobara Bayo, and so on and so forth. Now, this was how the whole country was captured. We were students, but we were already involved in the movement. This National Conscience Party was not a political party when it kicked off. It was national conscience. That was what it was.
Okay.
Until 1st of October, 1994, when Abacha was really running amok as a military dictator, demented, and gave a directive that there won't be any political activity. It fell on Chief as a man of conviction to say this is the time. National Conscience Party became a political party on the 1st of October, 1994.
Okay.
That was at Anthony Village bus stop. We were to hold it in a cousin hall and all that, but the military had taken over all of those arrangements, and eventually we did it. In short, 1994, the news magazine still had some of the banners. Now, I was there. Now, that was a man of conviction, driven by deep conviction that this is what it has to do. And his argument was clear. His argument was clear. His argument was that my right, our right, as citizens of this country, to freely associate and form political association cannot be foreclosed by your military restrictions. And that was it.
Indeed.
It happened.
So,
So if you allowed me, yes,
I just wanted to, because
so that I threw them
there's
up.
so many stories.
I won't give examples, but let me mention them. Let me mention them.
I'm watching time. I'm watching time, and it's going to come back to you.
Great guy.
He was indeed a great guy. And by the way, we talked about Fela, and the music was playing all over Zero. So like birds of a feather, coming from different angles altogether. But again, this
his sense of humility was unparalleled. Chief prostrated
seriously.
before my own father.
You're very right.
Before
That's
and
another
that was
aspect.
the day my father stopped harassing me and said, if this is the kind of people
You are associating with.
you are associating with, and who we hear about all over the world.
Can you imagine?
Chief dashed out of his office at Atoni Village, said, is that Ugumadu Malaki's father? Is that? And lay flat. My brother, I'm from Delta State. No person lies. I don't lie down greeting my father. I shake his hand straight into his house. That was the first time.
A man of great humility, and also a fearless. I mean, when the word fearless, it's like the man's name is Fawehinmi. That F, you could also replace it with fearless. He just didn't seem to know the meaning of the word when it came to his single-minded devotion to the elevation of the living conditions of the people that he loved. And if you were to run into Chief Gani Fawehinmi, as I did, you know, many people will testify to this, you greet him as a hero, and he's deferring to you as if you're a bigger person than him. So you talked about his humility, and then people will also remember that this was a fearless gentleman.
His disposition to jump into the struggle. Students had free legal access all over the country.
Now, talking about being fearless,
yes.
You can imagine somebody going to the seat of power during the military regime.
Exactly.
He was invited by Babangida to address the Armed Forces Ruling Council on some issues, and he got there and he spoke to them as if they are little children, as if they are toddlers, that they know that they are holding, they are rogues, they are misfits, that they have taken this government through the barrel of a gun, that they too will be facing music and so on and so forth. Spoke to them, spoke
the truth to power.
To power. Then after that, of course, that earned his respect from Babangida, and of course, Babangida is still alive. He has never he has never stopped saying that the only person he respects in Nigeria is Chief Gani Fawehinmi, because they were sitting down and he was talking to them as if they were schoolboys. And these people that all they need to do is, are you talking to us? They will just take him away, and that's all.
But
fearless. And of course, there is nowhere he will not go. The journey all the time. And there was an incident. He went to address the students of University of Benin, I guess 1998 or so. He finished his activities 8 o'clock in the evening, left Benin that same 8:30 and started coming back to Lagos. His colleagues and those who were with him, one Richard Akinola was with him and told him that, Chief, it's night. He said, what's night about it? And of course, don't forget that anyway, during the struggle itself, anyway, we moved around at night. So the issue of somebody being afraid does not come. But the principal thing is that Chief was a light to us.
Indeed. You know, I got to go on a break now. And he was a light to the legal profession, especially the quote-unquote radical elements of the profession who wanted to push the frontiers. There's no way you look at that. So when we come back from we'll look at how the very people that he gave his life for and that he defended, how they responded to him. You would imagine that all that we've been saying in the past half an hour or so, that they would flock to his call to change society. We remember that it didn't actually end up that way. But stay with us, please. We'll be right back, and we'll also take your calls. Welcome back, and we're looking at one of Nigeria's heroes, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, whose 80th posthumous birthday was yesterday. Now, among the things we said in the first half of the program was that he established the National Conscience Party, and we know how the public treated his efforts. Many might have thought that a man of Gani Fawehinmi's caliber, his ideals, his principles, when he now has a party, that's where everybody will flock to, but we know that's not exactly what happened. Nevertheless, it didn't deter him. He didn't give up and become depressed and say that, look at those that we are fighting for who are not supporting the issue. Why do you think that is? That's the question. Why do you think, in spite of not being supported in this giving all, people like you are in the same boat. People like you, gentlemen, are in the same boat. You're not necessarily going to be appreciated, but still, you keep on keeping on. What's going on there?
A genuine Christian or a Muslim, or even our traditional believers, will not cease to practice his faith when he realizes that perhaps the people with whom he shares the same faith are doing otherwise.
You know.
So, like I said,
so it's almost become a religious calling.
Yes.
Almost.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
By the way, he was a devout Muslim. Just you mentioned about devout Christians, but it almost became like a...
you can approximate it to be that. But please, I must not forget, because we are celebrating Fawehinmi. It wouldn't have been possible except that there are still institutions, persons, and group of persons who keep his memory. Yes. First is his immediate family, from the matriarch of the struggle herself, the mama of the struggle, we call her Ganiyat Fawehinmi, to, of course, Mohammed, our friend, and his siblings, and the other siblings.
Mohammed is also a lawyer.
Of course. Then Nigerian Bar, Ikeja in particular, who has instituted these memorial lectures, you know, for him, upward of, for as long as he has been gone. And then, of course, the Lagos State government. I mean, these are few moments when you have, what you had there is a 44-foot
statue. You know. And this was joining another one that had been put there before now.
So I needed to point that out, because that way we will guarantee the history of this country. The narrative will not be changed.
And by the way, it also bears mentioning, in case you don't live in Lagos or you don't visit frequently, that there's also a park, a Gani Fawehinmi Park, in a central place in Lagos, where these statues are erected.
You call it Gani Fawehinmi Park. We have appropriated it as the Freedom Park.
They've rechristened it Freedom Park.
And we have used it symbolically, believing that the spirit of this man that was real and genuine is still hovering around.
I remember.
And each time we approach there for a public-spirited action,
the spirit of Aluta comes up.
Gani looms. Gani looms, and we record. Now, let's go back to what you want me to.
In the administration of the last
is that right?
Former President Jonathan.
You are talking of 1st of January 2012.
Yes. That place
in
really
short,
got on the map.
We were paying pilgrimage. That place was intact. Those of us who understood the dynamics of the struggle were moving from Yaba. We will move to the place. From Yaba, we will go to, and we were coming back to that, knowing that that is where, but let's leave that. Coming back to
the
Fawehinmi point you made. You know,
Sorry, let me just cut you short there. I'm sorry.
You don't want to cut him short. You want to butt in.
I want to butt in.
Which is not the most polite thing.
I've already apologized, so that it doesn't go off. Except maybe just to remember that indeed the Fawehinmism was coined by my chairman then, Kunle Ojo, when we were chairman of the MBA, when he was chairman of MBA Ikeja, and I was the PRO. That was in 2004, 2006. And of course, I guess we started the Fawehinmism lecture in 2005. And of course, ever since, the thing has gone in leaps and bounds.
Okay, thank you for that positioning. Malaki, do you still remember your thoughts?
It was very resourceful. and I've explained a bit of that. He was also resourceful intellectually. In short, he prided himself to, he was a publisher of law, a practitioner of law, and a writer of law.
And by the way, let me not forget philanthropist as well.
Oh, well,
you know,
if
let us not forget the philanthropist.
That's
a whole different
if you go into
subject
that,
matter.
if you go into that, then we'll be dealing, and then you need to also get as far as all parts of the country,
everywhere,
including Ondo, to tell that story.
That's
And
right.
we'll leave that for. As far as the law was concerned, you needed to, and which is precisely why I ask people, particularly those who come to my chambers today for recruitment. You know, you were mentioning about how detribalized he was. It wasn't just about that. He needed also be sure that you were driven by conviction. I understand that if you go looking for an uncle or a senior officer to come introduce you to him to work,
to take a card,
he will walk you out.
Yes, yes.
And the reason was simple. Who is this who cannot stand on his own to even approach a law firm for placement? That alone was a disqualifying factor.
He had
now,
all
if you
these
just oppose that with what goes on in Nigeria today, you will see why we are suffering.
Which leads me on to
Now,
where I wanted to go.
As a lawyer,
Yeah.
I mean, if you entered Chief Gani Fawehinmi's chambers, from reception up to where he is, you know, it was a duplex. And I talked about the underground where we were meeting. You would like to live and die a lawyer, because it would seem to you that the entire world was all about law.
His whole house was virtually
And he
law.
did, he dramatized it. You saw him in court, you will suffer no ambivalence if you wanted to be one.
Yes, yes.
Now, the point about this man was because of his notion about the law. The law wasn't just what was written on the piece of paper, which can be read by any person with minimal intelligence. The law was a tool and an instrument to alter the social balances in any society. And so he saw it as a potent weapon, which was why each time he would want to understand how will this aspect of the law advance the society. That is what gave rise to the INEC and Musa case that got up to Supreme Court, where you now have a liberal space and a political space that accommodates as many political parties as possible. That is where you got all the principles that fired his imagination when he took the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee first to the trial court, messed every person up, went to the appellate court, and did the same thing with an amazement and to the beauty of law, having democratized the whole thing. You know, he was the one who made it possible for a 2-year-old lawyer or 4-year-old lawyer to be able to engage a senior advocate of Nigeria, because the law was for those who are industrious.
Oh, he was instrumental in that.
Yeah, that is the MP, that's the Nigerian
Now, the other question that immediately comes to mind is the legacy of Chief Gani Fawehinmi. Here we are eulogizing him and waxing lyrical. But in terms of...
Yori, let me butt in now, because...
But you see, I didn't butt in. I didn't butt in. It's Wale who butted in.
The reason I want to butt in is because it seems you are even also forgetting... You talked about the response of the masses.
This is where I'm going back to.
Please, give me the first shot.
This is where I'm going back to.
Now,
say, what have the masses kept this legacy? Have they lifted it shoulder high?
In critically appraising the dynamics of social evolution, you get to the point where you begin to deal with the consequences of dehumanization. One of such is that the victims of oppression begin to lose proper comprehension, proper appreciation of the texture and character of their own crisis. This is what is happening to the Nigerian people. And it comes this way. If you have been thoroughly dehumanized, and I say so because you do see fellow Nigerians going to scavenge from dustbin. You see them, I see them. They carry whatever, they go pick. They're already feeding from that. You see Nigerians doing all sorts of minor job just to be able to feed, and so on and so forth. When you get to that level,
you don't know yourself anymore.
Your neighbor, which is why all over history, it is people in the middle class, that comfort zone, who are able to engage and change society.
I got to interrupt you, and forgive me for doing so, but...
So you are butting in again?
Well, you butted in first.
Thank you.
The phone. Mr. George, good morning, sir, and thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle.
Thank you for calling
in. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. The issue you are talking about, I'm very happy about it. You are talking about activism. I want to start from where Mr. Wale Iswade made a statement that we wish people were celebrated while alive. All you have been saying about Gani Fawehinmi is not new. Many people knew about this and why he was alive. But the issue is, why do we always celebrate people after they pass on? It's of concern to me because there are so many things that are happening in society that need to be acknowledged, that are not acknowledged. We're waiting for them to pass on. Say, for instance, on theory, there is a former minister who has been sitting in the sun for 4 years now, every day, because children were abducted from a school. Her daughter is not among them. She's not even from that part of the country. She has taken it upon herself to ensure, because she believes that abduction could bring about a truncation about girl child education in a part of this country. And she's ready to do it to any extent. Instead of appreciation, people harass her every day. The day she will pass on her, all 2 years ago, he was this, he was that, he was... Why can't we appreciate people that do good while they are alive? That's just the area I want to address on it.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for calling in. Again, this is what Mr. George has spoken about, that Wale, first of all, he's the guy who first of all, it happens all over the world, doesn't it? It seems to be a part of, I don't know.
Yeah, but we can do it right.
We
can do it right, because that's the essence of life.
Maybe
let us not push it further.
Yes, although one doesn't want to defend anything, but it could be that, look, you never know the extent of what a man is going to give until the very end.
Of course.
And so that's why it's easier to do at the very end.
Besides, those ones who are involved are not doing it to be
to be acknowledged. But why are we not appreciating our heroes and heroines while they are alive? It's a constant question that we get.
Among them, she's not even from that part of the country. She has taken it upon herself to ensure, because she believes that abduction could bring about a truncation about girl child education in a part of this country. And she's ready to do it to any extent. Instead of appreciation, people harass her every day. The day she will pass on her, all 2 years ago, he was this, he was that, he was... Why can't we appreciate people that do good while they are alive? That's just the area I want to address on it.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for calling in. Again, this is what Mr. George has spoken about, that Wale, first of all, he's the guy who first of all, it happens all over the world, doesn't it? It seems to be a part of, I don't know.
Yeah, but we can do it right.
We
can do it right, because that's the essence of life.
Let us not push it further. Yes, although one doesn't want to defend anything, but it could be that, look, you never know the extent of what a man is going to give until the very end.
Of course.
And so that's why it's easier to do at the very end.
Besides, those ones who are involved are not doing it to be
to be acknowledged. But why are we not appreciating our heroes and heroines while they are alive. It's a constant question that we get.
Appreciating people while alive encourages others to do and put in their best. Because there must be some...
insecure people will never appreciate somebody who's better than them.
There must be some...
There's that aspect to it. Insecure people will never appreciate a guy or a person or a lady who is better than them.
That's a point.
In fact, what they do is they keep quiet and hope people won't notice their mediocrity.
Yes, that's correct.
In as much as it is, there must be a reward structure.
Comrade Tokwe in Akure, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We're waiting for you.
Yeah, I want to congratulate the Lagos State government for recognizing. I want to congratulate the Lagos State government for recognizing Chief Gani Fawehinmi. I'm a product of his struggle. Gani Fawehinmi assisted us when we were rusticated at Yabatek. He never took a cover from us. And I want to say that in memory of him, Nigerians have equally benefited a lot. I want to just tell you one experience we had with him. There was a day the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, contested an election on the UN seat as a secretary. We were in his chambers that day. When Obasanjo lost the election, to my surprise, Gani Fawehinmi asked the security men to go and buy a case of minerals to celebrate it. And he said, what happened? He said, if Obasanjo should go and represent Nigeria at the UN, that is going to disgrace this country. And I want to say that if you have opportunity to stay with Chief Gani Fawehinmi, if you actually have a decent conscience, your way of life will change. Correct. And I must confess that Gani Fawehinmi changed my life. Even as I work, I'm a local government staff. I'm the current auditor of Northern in Ondo State. I want to say my life was influenced by my getting together with Gani Fawehinmi for that short period when he handled our case ourselves. Because then, Babangida, we were trying to protest on this increase on bursting fees for Nigerian students. And at that period, Babangida when Nigeria hosted the OAU summit. So I was surprised Babangida went to bought the limousine for OAU, president of OAU member states. And we said to ourselves, if Nigeria has such money to buy limousine for president, why can't they increase bursary award for Nigerian students? And before we know it, 8 of us were killed. And 8 of us were equally rusticated, of which I have won. Gani Fawehinmi handled the case. He did not take a single cover from us. And we won the case. And I think our leaders today should ask themselves, if they die today, how will they be remembered? Like Gani Fawehinmi. And I want to say that the NCP, that party, they should carry out more enlightenment. One day, SCP will rule Nigeria.
All right,
I want to thank Okuyori for this special program for the... Gani Fawehinmi is alive.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
But
It's TVC, actually.
Let me correct the information.
Yes.
Obasanjo did not contest. He couldn't have contested. What happened was, we were there.
Yes.
That action was our... What happened was, he indicated interest.
Yes. Yes. So but when he was not chosen...
No, indicated interest. And then to be able to do that, you need input from his own country. We went and catalogued
all the reasons why this is not a fit and proper person.
We compiled them, and the arrowhead was chief himself. Of course, he was disqualified. He never contested. Not that he lost election. He wasn't even qualified.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that they don't tell us a different side of the story.
So now coming to another aspect of Chief, about his principle, about what my brother just said, the caller from Akure, is that stance of supporting whatever is good. And in supporting whatever is good, he will spare no fool.
But why did people not support him
too? That's where I'm going.
It's important to hear your take that when there was a political party that should belong to everybody.
First and foremost.
What is it now? They were foot dragging. And that's putting it vigorously.
First and foremost, we are not doing all these things because we want people to hail us or celebrate us. People like us are not taking advantage of people, We are here because we want to enhance and to promote people's life and add value to people.
But the
That's
chief
why.
was very clear about what you've just said.
No,
You would therefore have expected
he
people to flock to such an idea. What is
will
your take
people will not
on
flock
why?
Because my brother has already established it some few seconds ago about the state of dehumanization of the people.
So you don't even know yourself
anymore.
One
character the other day now said that, how did I become governor? Through stomach infrastructure. That's how people are interested in what they will gain and get.
Because
I've done a calculation.
The chief was walking a very hard road.
Yes.
People prefer easier roads. Sam Amasheye is on the line. Good morning, Sam.
Yori.
Yeah.
It's good to talk to you.
Indeed. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. The point here is that...
wait till happen. You know, greet us.
Hello?
Sorry. Continue, please.
A lot of eulogy has been going on about Gani Fawehinmi, and he deserves all of that. His energy against the military, his fearlessness, and so on, his ability to take sacrifice. But we should not forget, too, that especially now that you are discussing the issue of his inability to mobilize for his own political party, that Gani also had a streak in him which tended towards the dictatorial.
This is a point you've been very consistent on, Sam.
Yes?
I say you've been very consistent. In fact, when he passed on and I spoke with you on air, you made this very point.
Yes, and that his heroes were Ataturk. And when I had a discussion with him about Stalin, and I said, look, Stalin lived for 20 million people to die. And he said, well, so don't you see what he achieved? In spite of the 20 million people dead, so there was a sense of the macabre in the revolutionary impulse of this man. So we must always see the two sides of Gani Fawehinmi. His inability to move with a group. He said he didn't trust people, so he couldn't organize. So that was also an irony. You want to form a political party and you cannot work with people. So we must always try to put Gani Fawehinmi in perspective. He had that dictatorial streak. He had a sense that we have to save this country, but the person to save this country has to go the Gani Fawehinmi way or just further way.
All right.
There was a certain tragic flaw about this personality. I just wanted to put that in context.
Indeed.
Because I had a lot of interaction with him, especially in his heyday as a fighter of the military.
Thank you very much, Sam. Sam Amasheye, who also anchors on a program on TVC.
I agree with you.
It's an interesting because I don't think any of us meant to portray the chief as an angel or anything like that.
No, he's not an angel.
But
he's not an angel, but be that as it
somebody saying his own experience and his own take right next to all else that is being said.
All of us have our own issues.
Of course, of course.
Chief has his own issues, but he is our darling.
Yes.
And there's nothing anybody can say that will overlook that aspect of him, of that leadership trait of being passionate, giving his all to
all of which Sam said that he is deserving of all these encomiums, but that his own personal realization, having dealt with the man one-on-one, put it there.
I think the beauty of this conversation and Nigeria as a political entity is the depth of intellect. Never mind that people are now called lazy and wasted generation and all that.
The president said he never said so.
And I think I need to thank Sam, who, by the way, is one of us.
Yes. When you say one of us, in the struggle.
Sam was the first General Secretary of CDHR as of today.
Okay.
And we have...
Sam is, editorial board chair of the nation.
We had documented that.
And he also
and so
is an anchor on, as
now,
I said,
so
on
when
TVC.
I say that, I know what I mean. But I think it is that there are men who are also driven by sufficient dose of courage to put it the way it is. The point is clear, that he wasn't an angel. And you need to hear the story of people who passed through him, either as lawyers and others. But what came out as a predominant factor, which is what characterized Chief Gani Fawehinmi, is what we are discussing today.
Indeed. Let me quickly add Reverend Dominic's, contribution to this. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Iori now. Dominic, Iori now.
So you have become a professor.
Good morning, Lucky.
Good morning.
Honestly, when I come encounter with Gani Fawehinmi, for a long time, I didn't know he was a Muslim. That man put religion in cooler and fight for humanity. Nobody's a saint, but Gani is a saint to me. But when I come and get to him as a pastor, he didn't show me a different thing. I don't know he was a Muslim. Let me be frank to you. I didn't know he was a Muslim. I thought he was just a natural person trying to pursue the face of men. That man is my hero. But emotionally, as we discuss about him today, I thank Lagos State government. But which day will we see the the apostles of families like Lucky, like Oguade, in National Assembly?
It's not Lucky, it's Malaki.
No. You said Lucky for the second time. I think you mean Malaki.
And he's my good friend.
Which time is my friend, my brother? When will you see Malaki in National Assembly? When will you see Oguade in National Assembly? To represent what we have been fighting since 80s till now. So we can bring decency, we can bring character to national issues. This only way the legend will sleep in grace, and he will be so glad that his own children, like us, like Malaki, like Oguade, is National Assembly to stop this shenanigans. Nigeria is sitting at space. We must stand up now to save this nation.
Yes. And
therefore, we fought for it. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Let us look at it
now.
quickly.
Wait. We've run out of time. We've run out of time. But you can have 30 seconds. Okay. 30 seconds.
My 30 seconds is that indeed, those of us who indeed love Chief Gani Fawehinmi will make do to really support what he stands for.
Okay.
You may not support what he stood for or stand for when he was with us on earth, but at least you can support him now.
The idea.
Going with what my brother just said.
Sam said. And,
no, not Sam.
Dominic.
Dominic said.
Yeah. Malaki?
There are no better tributes to Chief than to continually rededicate ourselves to the memories that we have about him. A life of integrity, a life of immense courage, a life of conviction, and a life of determination. Chief Gani Fawehinmi, many people would not know, lost more cases than he won.
Okay.
There was
but he was so prolific.
Yes.
In that,
there wasn't any of those cases
okay.
that didn't push the frontiers of the society and aimed at a better environment much more than he met it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been talking about the late Chief Gani Fawehinmi, all these things that we've been saying. It's important to also state that there are others like him as well. There are others, who are in that ilk and who are trying to move human rights forward. CDHR, when you talk about it, you have to remember organizations like that. And I just can't start now to name, fighters for human rights and social justice. Thank you very much, gentlemen, Wale Ogunade and Malaki Ugumado. Indeed, that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition at 10:30 in the morning. I am Iori Folani. Bye-bye for now.